月が笑ってるわ。
So wait, are there times where it's not smiling? You know what, never mind, don't answer that. The cold opener this week just blatantly showed the ending of this episode. Jeez, why do I even bother with spoiler warnings if Toei has never given a hoot? Anyway, we'll just skip this and go right into the episode proper. Mr. Seno had bought his daughter a nice present, as well as another one of those damn charms. Seriously, I wonder if there's an AA equivalent for witches' goods. Meanwhile, at the Harukaze residence, Doremi's mom managed to splurge a little and get steaks for dinner that night. And it was all thanks to the extra lottery money she had gotten and nothing else, I'm sure. Of course, while Doremi was overjoyed at first, she was able to put two and two together and realized that maybe some magical luck was involved.
本当に本当？
なんなら調べてみる。
Like daughter, like mother. I guess all of this also distracted Mrs. Harukaze from the fact that her youngest daughter outright stated that she was going to eat her dessert right before dinner. Fortunately for Pop's appetite, a certain toad had gotten to her cake first. Now, of course, all of the evidence seemed to point to her sister as the cake thief, and understandably, having gotten tired of Majurika's nonsense, Doremi decided to get a little payback. Also, did our main heroine turn into Quagsire for a second there? Anyway, Pop decided not to tell on her sister, and Majurika became her personal plaything once again, so yeah, wins all around. Meanwhile, Hazuki was discussing the next course of action with Lala. One option would be to try and pass their level 6 exams again, but they wouldn't be able to do it without spheres, which of course they used up 6 on Baya. Yeah, I'm still not getting over that. Still, Lala encouraged her to keep a stiff upper lip. Hazuki got similar advice, plus a little more from Masaru, who was once again practicing his trumpet playing.
それが本当に必要なものなら、俺だったらバイトしてでも手に入れる。
Not a bad idea, except for, you know, child labor laws. Again, this and many other anime have kind of been ignoring stuff like that. Still, cute scene between these two with some obvious shipping vibes. At the Seno residence, Aiko was playing a harmonica a little better than a certain Digidestined. Only issue was that one of the windpipes on it had gotten too worn out. And speaking of being worn out, her father for some reason seemed to be a little more exhausted than usual when he got home. Aiko of course figured out that he had gotten another one of those stupid charms, but was unable to confirm it as her father pushed her back into the apartment. He gave her that present we saw earlier, which turned out to be a new harmonica. Of course, Aiko enjoyed it at first, until Mr. Seno tried to get rid of the old one. Apparently, it had a ton of sentimental value between the two, though clearly one of them had completely forgotten about it. I'll comment more about this a little later. Right now, I will say, I like how the toxifying effects of Majurika's charm seem to be getting even worse as time goes on. Back with Doremi, her father had gotten a nasty broken leg, and yet they still tried to play it up for laughs.
夢中になりすぎて岩から落っこっちゃった。
Tell the truth, Geki, for I beat you up again, didn't he? No, of course, Mrs. Harukaze had lent him the devil's charm, and Doremi was unable to take it from her. Moreover, she got a call from Hazuki explaining how Aiko had run away from home and was crashing at her place. From there, they learned the reason why the harmonica was so important, and unsurprisingly, it involved her now divorcee mother. As it turned out, it had been one of the last things her parents had bought for her together, and even as they were purchasing it, the cracks in their marriage were clearly showing. And shortly after the divorce, Mr. Seno played a very tearful little tune. Okay, great story and everything, but I have to ask, does this show have a thing for piling all of this heavy stuff onto Aiko? I mean, I don't think her shoulders can take much more. Like seriously, why is it that both Doremi and Hazuki's conflicts were played up more for comedy, and yet all of Aiko's scenes have been really dramatic with no significant amount of levity? I'm not trying to discredit Aiko's conflict or anything, it's just when comparing the scenarios, it doesn't feel like it's gotten any more serious for Doremi, in spite of the fact that her family was now physically being harmed because of the charms. It just doesn't feel all that balanced is all I'm saying. Anyway, in spite of telling a story like that, Aiko recovered much quicker than her friends. Like, I get that maybe she's holding it in, but come on girl, your friends are crying for you, at least shed a few tears. They did eventually stop after learning that their parents hadn't given up on the charms. and judging by Bias condition, she hadn't gotten a new charm, meaning that this old woman was infinitely wiser than these fools. Thus, it was appropriate that she would deliver Aiko's message to her father. Now you see, this is the kind of comedic levity this plotline needed instead of an endless round of a bunch of gut punches. Oh, okay, I probably should have taken the ring off first. Please. Ow, 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 ow. Anyway, the main priority now was of course to try and disable Majruka's charms once again, but of course they didn't have any spheres to do so. However, Hazuki brought up Masaru's advice and that maybe they could earn some spheres through some part-time work in the witch's world. That said, there was still the issue of trying to get there through Majruka's door again without any magic.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
Like, feel free to correct me, but I couldn't find any scenes establishing that they had misplaced a sphere at Hazuki's, so all I could do is call this a Dodo Ex Machina. In any case, they made their way to the original Mahodo, and this time, they knew a perfect way to sneak in. Well, clearly, you've never seen a roach girl voiced by Mamiko Noto. Seriously, she was totally adorable. They managed to make their way into the witch's world, and I guess caught the botas right before closing time, and asked if they could work for spheres. This is what your tax dollars go to, people. Thus, they tried looking elsewhere, and the botas at least suggested that they could try asking the queen for work. And fortunately, they were right, as the queen did have one thing they could do: chop firewood. Funny thing, most of that isn't meant to keep them warm or anything, but more so for some wood-burning art. Seriously, go look up wood-burning anime, they have some impressive stuff. I will say, I really liked the scene, as we got to see them actually work hard towards their goal of helping their friends and family, to the point that each of them ended up with blisters, but they just kept going by wisely rotating positions. And this was all intercut with Mr. Seno finally throwing away his charm and seemingly recognizing the wrongs he had committed. Really, about the only thing I have to complain about is the fact that Daideris threw the charm into the river. Like, seriously, dude, littering? But yeah, when you also consider the fact that they spoke to the Motas right before they closed shop, and in this next scene we're going to see them open, we can assume that the Ojamajo pulled at least an all-nighter, if not longer. Again, I feel like the show needs to have a frank discussion about child labor laws, but whatever. A good showing of determination and drive and all that. And with that, they got their very generous payments of one color matching sphere each. Well, I see one royal follows Marie Antoinette's line of thinking. Alright, I'm just kidding. Marie wasn't actually that bad, and going from 0 to 1 sphere was apparently all they needed to pass their level 6 exams that the Ojamajo didn't say they were trying to take now. And I guess you could theorize this was the real reason why they turned down the Ojamajo in the last episode, because they still had spheres, but this is also the Motas. They seldom take their jobs that seriously. Still, as their reward, they were going to upgrade their wands by merging them with their most precious instruments, because musically themed show and all that. Of course, Aiko produced her harmonica, while Doremi and Hazuki brought out a mini piano and a violin. Wait, where did those come from? I mean, I guess we can assume that they used their spheres that they just earned to teleport them in, but it would have been nice to get some establishing shot of that. I mean, I know this is a packed episode, but they could have just done a little bit of Doremi and Hazuki pulling out their spheres to at least suggest that was what they were going to do. Anyway, I guess I shouldn't complain as much when all three Ojamajo just ended up with the same new wand designs in spite of their different instruments, because I guess most parents wouldn't want to buy their kids more than one of these things. Their new wands also came with a starter set of much smaller and yet far more energy efficient spheres. Thank God, I still can't wrap my head around how those previous gumballs worked. With that, the episode ended with the Ojamajo ready to take on Majruka and end this little story arc. Yeah, this is a really good episode. I mean, aside from maybe piling a little bit too much onto Aiko and also promoting glittering, this was an excellent showing for the Ojamajo in general thanks to their determination and hard work. As I said, this was a packed episode with a lot happening, from Pop's reunion with her plush-chan, to the surprise level 6 exam, to Aiko's conflict and backstory with her father. And yet, it never felt too rushed, which is quite the accomplishment. Everything flowed nicely and didn't feel too out of place. That said, with that last plot line, it did feel a tad bit heavy-handed. Like, I get they needed to establish the importance of Aiko's harmonica, but it also came off as yet another example of Aiko getting the most traumatic episodes. Even when comparing their intro episodes, it's night and day when it comes to the drama levels. This was even exemplified at the end of this episode when Aiko's harmonica clearly had much more meaning than Doremi and Hazuki's instruments, both from a story and meta perspective. It's not so much an issue with this episode by itself, but more with the show and how they focus a little too much on Aiko, because this was still a really good tale that addressed the issues and means of coping with the difficulties of a divorce. And thankfully, this was somewhat balanced out by giving all three Ojamajo a moment to shine by having them work towards their goals through the questionable method of having the children chop wood. And yet, the execution of it was so good, thanks to the literal sweat, blood, and tears our characters shed. Overall, a very good and productive episode in every sense, but can we let up on poor Aiko already? I think she's had enough trauma as is. As I said, there isn't going to be any new healing good this week, so instead, I'm going to try and fill in the gap with my Toy Trinity video. That is, unless I end up making yet another Tropical Rouge video. Yeah, I ended up making 2 videos last week, and I don't want to end up overhyping this new season, so I'll try and not make too many videos. But still, do check out what I have made so far if you're interested. And until maybe next year, farewell for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I think I need to take some stomach medicine after that little gut punch. Ow.